43% of the Defense Department's spending on major business programs is going to only 4 of those programs. Those 4 have some things in common. Vijay D'Souza is Director of Information Technology and Cybersecurity at the Government Accountability Office. Vijay, welcome. Thanks for joining me today. What did you look at when you looked at these 24 business programs, and what did you find that they had in common, and what was disparate among them?
Well, we do this review every year, and as you mentioned, we look at DOD's major IT business systems investments. We typically look at 3 things. First, we look at where they are with regards to cost and schedule. Second, we look at the extent to which they're applying appropriate leading practices in cybersecurity and software development. And then finally, we look at overall policy and programmatic changes that DOD is implementing to try to improve its efforts in this area.
And what were the threads that you saw among all 24 or among the big 4 that we'll talk about in a moment?
Well, for better or worse, a common theme from year to year is cost and schedule delays. This year we found that 14 of the 24 programs we looked at experienced cost or schedule changes. Most of those were cost increases or schedule delays. The median cost increase was $173 million, and the median schedule delay was 15 months. Unfortunately, that's something that we see with a lot of government IT projects.
What's your sense of what's driving that? What did you find were the factors that were causing that?
The programs we talk to typically identify issues such as requirements, identifying requirements for what the system's supposed to do, and these things change over time. There's typically challenges with testing, and then also staffing and workforce issues.
One item that was supposed to help software developers in general, not just in the Defense Department, to meet schedule requests, to meet timelines better, was agile software development. I note in your work, 11 DOD IT business programs reported actively developing software using recommended agile and iterative software development approaches and practices. That's out of 24. Is that a problem, or is that just a factor of doing business?
Yeah, actually, that was a good news story in the sense that those were the only projects that were in active software development. So we would expect them to be using Agile. The fact that they were using Agile as opposed to an older waterfall approach is actually a good news story. The bad news part of that is a few of the programs, although they said they were using Agile, weren't actually able to demonstrate they were using some of the tools and processes that DoD requires for its programs that use Agile.
What are some of the tools that those programs should be using that maybe other programs that come along at some future point should be sure to keep in mind?
Well, DoD has a publication that lists a number of them, but just 2 examples are things such as a cumulative flow diagram and a burn down chart, and these are just ways to track and organize requirements for software development.
You also write 2 programs did not have an approved cybersecurity strategy. That sounds problematic in the context of how often the department talks all across the services, from OSD, the Office of the CIO, about the importance of cybersecurity and cyber defense.
Yeah, it is a problem, and we do think it's a problem. We made a recommendation in the 2022 version of this report because at that point we found 10 programs that didn't have approved cybersecurity strategies. So I would say 2 is an improvement, but really they should all have these strategies.
That's what I was thinking as you're conveying that. 10's better than 2, or 10's worse than 2, but 2 is worse than 0. Is
Correct.
0 attainable in something like this, especially given how important cybersecurity is? Is that doable?
I mean, every major program should have a cybersecurity strategy. There's no question.
You also write 4 programs had not developed plans to implement zero trust architecture in their cybersecurity frameworks by DOD's 2027 deadline. That also strikes me as problematic, and I wonder, is it an issue where they didn't demonstrate it, which doesn't necessarily mean that they don't have zero trust architecture available, it's just that you couldn't see it, or was it not there when you examined?
Well, the reasons for these 4 programs to not have the strategy varied a little bit, and we talked about this when we were developing the report. We didn't make a recommendation here yet because the 2027 deadline hasn't yet occurred, and some of the programs had valid reasons. They were going to rely on another component strategy, and that strategy wasn't yet done. But our concern as we do this in future years is going to be, do they hit that deadline? I mean, I would say honestly, if they don't have the strategy by next year, 2027 is around the corner. It's going to be difficult for them to achieve it.
We just have a couple of minutes left, but you've made the point a couple of times that this is an ongoing body of work on your team's part. What's the arc that you see overall? It's hard, I guess, to take a snapshot of 1 year and see where the department is headed. Is it a couple of times you've alluded to good news stories? Is it your sense that overall they're headed in the right direction with still some work to do, or are there still some major challenges that the department has to deal with?
Well, we think that the folks at DOD and the CAO's office in particular are trying hard to address some of these issues, and part of what we cover is some of the guidance and tools and stuff they put in place, but they're really not there yet. The other thing I want to mention is, as we look at different issues from year to year, for example, this year was the first year we looked at artificial intelligence. That's something we'll start to look at in more detail as it becomes more widespread.
Vijay, it's great to have you on the program. Thanks very much for joining me.
Thanks, it was great to be here.